How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Robin and Batman. This is from DC Comics, and it's a 3-issue limited series. At first I thought this was a Black Label thing, but checking the logo in the top, no, just regular DC. I think the ads referred to this as a prestige series, but it's cool to see DC and more than just Black Label focusing on story, story over complicated lore, and kind of just letting writers and artists go and do their own thing. So major props for DC to that. And this is a really fun limited series. This is written by Jeff Lemire with art by Dustin Nguyen. Sorry if I mispronounced that last name. But this is, I believe, the same creative team that did Descender, which was a really fun sci-fi story about this little robot boy lost in space. That was a really fun book, and it's good to see them back. Jeff Lemire, though, I liked everything of his that I read. He's become one of the bigger comic book writers, and just recently he wrote Sweet Tooth, which was turned into a Netflix show, so good for him on his success. But anyway, if we notice the title, Robin and Batman, and there's a good reason for that. This focuses on the early days of Robin, the original Robin, Dick Grayson. Literally, the opening scene is his first mission out on the streets, and it talks about the first couple weeks of Dick Grayson actually being Robin, but from his perspective in a very character-heavy version of the story. So, a lot of Batman stuff is through Batman's perspective. Here it's through Robin, and it's also focusing on defining Robin's character and not so much worried about the mission. The story here isn't the biggest, most complicated story. It's a pretty simple Killer Croc revenge story, but even though the story's simple, the character dynamics are very interesting. Batman, Robin, and Alfred, and all three of them kind of have their own ideas about how things are going here and what Dick Grayson should be doing, So it's very cool to see the complicated character dynamics and really getting inside Robin's head. This is a pretty fun story. Let's go ahead and take a look at these covers, which I think are by the main, main cover by Dustin Nguyen. Yeah, so these are the interior artist actually doing the cover, which I really do like. And he's got this really nice watercolor style. They actually credit him as doing art and colors, which, yeah, you have to let him do that, because look at these nice watercolors. But anyway, this is Robin in his classic costume, which I really do like how that turned out, and it's kind of sad he only has it in the first issue, but I really do love the classic costume with the little collar and everything, and they're jumping through the city here. So really fun opening cover. And then you get the second cover, and that's his new costume that he uses throughout most of the book. You also get to see the circus he grew up in, and Killer Croc, who is the main villain of this story, who they do use in a very interesting way, by the way. And then you get the third cover, which is a reverse of the Death in the Family cover, but this time we get Robin holding Batman. And by the way, when this cover came out, at the end of issue 2, Batman was not dead, and you see this cover going in, and you know that this is probably of a questionable continuity. Going into this issue and not knowing if Batman would die, that is that is a lot more suspense than you normally get. Because, hey, a little limited series that might not be canon, it could happen, So a lot more suspense than you normally get. Let's go ahead and talk a bit about that plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few of the plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the story's about. So basically, I'll talk mostly probably from issue 1 and then a little bit on issue 2, but I'll try to gloss over issue 3 just so we don't get any major spoilers, right? But let's go ahead and open it up. Each comic, the first page opens with a 16-panel grid, a little 3x4 of these squares, and you get things from various points in time in this one. This is the hand-stitched Robin suit. There's Killer Croc's teeth. Here's the present, and then some flashback sequences to his parents. You skip over that whole, I'm at the circus, my parents die, and then all of a sudden I'm adopted by Batman, but I don't know it and have to discover it. Like, all that stuff did happen, but it jumps straight into Robin's first day on the streets, so it really does cut to the chase. But also, all this stuff with Robin's internal dialogue, it's very, very interesting, where he talks about he doesn't really know who he is or what he could be, and he thought this world was a fantasy with monsters and even a knight, but he realizes, is this a fantasy or is this a nightmare? So really cool to see Robin's contemplation in this story, and we get to see him. This is his first night on the street, but he's not Robin yet, so this is a little a darker outfit that he's wearing. So, this is what Robin would be without any influence from Dick Grayson himself. And this is the suit that Bruce made for him, which I thought was really cool. But he's trying to do this on his own with Batman monitoring from a distance. And he thinks he's doing well, and Bruce is always like, no, you gotta look behind you. You're not seeing the whole picture. Scan around, And Bruce eventually does pop up after he thinks he had it, but of course there was one more guy in the back of the truck that was about to get him, and that leaves Batman very angry that he didn't do it perfectly, because he doesn't want him to die. Now, I love scenes like this. There's actually a few car ride scenes, and there they are just saying nothing the whole way home. But anyway, Alfred is here, and they do actually give Alfred a lot of character, They argue a lot. Alfred, I think if he had his way, Bruce wouldn't be a crime fighter either. But you get to see Bruce and Alfred arguing about, Alfred says, hey, you should be nicer on the kid, and Bruce is like, if I'm nicer, he might die. And Alfred's like, well, he shouldn't be out there in the field anyway, he's just a kid. And I do like that they took Bruce, Alfred, and Dick Grayson and gave them, each their own ideas of what should be going on. Dick wants to go out there, Bruce wants him to be out there but wants him to hold back, and Alfred's like, you're just a kid. So I really do like that all three of these characters are pretty well defined. It's pretty cool. You also get him at school because he's, super tired because he's been fighting crime all night. But you see him doodling in his notebook, which I really do like these scenes. You see him drawing every now and then and designing his own character, Robin, based on his old circus uniform, and you get to see him going through different logos and sketches and ideas, and he even talks about things like, yeah, I want to be Robin, but the costume being so red and bright, I don't know about that. Maybe I should be something darker like Nightwing, So a fun little inside joke, but at the same time knowing that these things are going through his head early. But anyway, Bruce doesn't want him to be out there anymore, says, you gotta go back to your training, and he whips up his own version of the Robin costume, and it's this really fun moment of, you know what, screw this, I know I shouldn't be bright red, but I want to be bright red, and he makes the original version of the costume, and he decides to follow Bruce into the sewers. They let some of the criminals go just to see where they would go back to, and they go into the sewers, and the crime that Robin stopped immediately was someone stealing a bunch of meat, and he thought they were petty crooks, but why would they just steal a bunch of meat? And that's where we get the reveal of the villain for this series, which is Killer Croc, and you get to see him pop up behind Robin there And look at how big they drew him in comparison to Robin, where Robin's all the way down here, and then that's Croc. That's pretty cool that they have Croc be so big and very, very threatening. Now, I won't spoil how they get out of that situation, but I do want to say that there is a revelation that makes this whole villain super interesting. You know, Croc is always one of those, I'm a monster, but I don't want to be. But look at what is revealed about him. He goes back to the ruins of the old circus, and he flashes back, and there's the Flying Graysons, and there's him in the tank as the Killer Croc sideshow attraction, which I thought was so fun to tie their origins together, where he's out there having fun and he has a family, and then you see Croc off in this tank all by himself and people think he's scary. It's such a great way to tie the two characters together, and you know, the idea that they'd be in circus life, but very different opposite sides of that. But also, you know how Robin's suit was inspired by his old Flying Grayson outfit? Well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, and that's going to play into things later. And then we get issue 2. Now, again, I'll be covering less as we go on, but issue 2 is kind of a side story, which it does help Robin's character, the idea that he, you know, this is about him making friends, but it does kind of sideline the Killer Croc stuff for a bit. We open up with Robin being bullied at Gotham Academy, and he just kicks the bullies' butts right then and there. So the principal is a little worried about him, a little worried about how much time is Bruce really spending with this kid, and worried that he's going to be a sort of rough loner character. But anyway, this issue, what it turns out to really be about is him meeting the Justice League. So he goes into the to the satellite there, and you get to meet all the Justice League characters, and he's of course really excited to meet, you know, the Superman, but it's really quickly, it turns out Hawkman is staying back on the base, and they've kind of dumped all their sidekicks here as like a babysitting thing. So all the sidekicks are here, they're going to fight like Mongol or something, and they're like, whoa, 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 kids shouldn't be fighting Mongol, stay on the satellite. And you get to meet Wonder Girl and Speedy and Aqualad and Kid Flash. And of course, they're not going to just stay on the satellite the whole time. Robin convinces them to break out, get to the teleporter, and solve crimes all on their own. So this is a sort of origin for the Teen Titans there. But here's them fighting the Royal Flush Gang, and they do a whole bunch of other things too. But yeah, Robin kind of becoming the leader because he convinces them, hey, let's not just sit at the tower playing video games, let's go out and fight some bad guys by ourselves. So, you know, getting to see Robin make friends in a superhero way, it's really interesting, but, you know, it does feel a little bit like, hey, what about all that Killer Croc stuff? But it's not about the mission, it's about Robin and his psychology, and it needs to talk about him making friends. So I kind of get the middle bit, but it is a little different. And let's just touch a tiny bit on this third one. I don't want to go in too much, but we do see them looking for Croc, and Robin just beating the heck out of this guy because he doesn't, you know, he doesn't believe, this guy says, no one's seen Croc for weeks, and he goes, I don't believe you, liar, where did he go? So you get to see, you know, Robin trying to balance the darkness, you know, because he doesn't know how much he should lose himself or how much, you know, he should try to keep his innocence, you know, and part of him's like, just abandon Dick Grayson altogether, become the crime-fighting guy. But this climax does wind up back at the circus, which I really do like, and it's going to be up to Robin to try to save Batman's life. And granted, the cover, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. And I really did like this series. You know, it's not the heaviest on plot. Basically, they find the guys who are stealing meat, the meat is to feed Killer Croc, and once his food supply is disrupted and he recognizes the Robin outfit, it's going to be a back and forth, you know? It's going to be the guy that had a good circus life and a loving family versus the guy that was left in the tank and ridiculed, you know? So it is a good dynamic between the two characters, but there's a lot of Robin in his head. You saw all those little red boxes, that's his internal dialogue, and, you know, not really knowing who he is or who he wants to be, and literally sketching things out in his journal. And there are times when Bruce is very cruel to him, but you know he doesn't mean it. And, you know, the back and forth between, you know, Bruce yelling at Dick and Dick wanting to do his own thing, and Bruce is like, I didn't really mean to be that mean to you, but I don't want you to die, and that's the most important. And there's even a moment at the end of issue 1 that should be super touching, but Robin's like, whoa, wait a minute, and it kind of turns it on his head. And then, like, even the end of the Justice League issue, you think, oh, it's fun, Robin's making friends, but there's a dark Batman twist on the end of that. But also with this one, you really do get to see Alfred's perspective, you know, and normally Alfred, he doesn't get to do much. He just goes, oh, Master Bruce, I'm worried about you, and then stitching him up. But you even do get a scene in one of the later issues where Robin doesn't want to go to school, and Bruce is like, well, if he doesn't want to go, he doesn't want to go, let's crime fight. And you get Alfred literally throwing the Robin suit at Bruce, going, I think I got most of the blood out of it, can we please try to be something resembling a normal family? And I'm like, whoa, they got Alfred ticked, which, you know, that's some really cool moments in here. So even though the plot is simple, hey, let's find Killer Croc, oh, he hates me, and they do take that Justice League diversion, it's really not so much about the mission or about one track, you know, as far as, you know, fighting crime goes. This is about Robin adjusting to his new life, you know, and adjusting to life as a kid, you know, can be hard anyway, but his world is so shaken and so changed up, and, you know, so many other versions of the story, they just go, oh, hey, I'm Robin, I'm a superhero now, that's cool. And he does think that, but he's also, deep down in his head, very shaken up, and you really, this is a great example of the psychology behind that. It doesn't get too deep and dark and mopey, and it does have cool Batman stuff too, but you really do get to see how shaken this kid obviously would be. And I wound up really liking this. If you guys are Robin fans, definitely check it out. But if you guys want a good character-driven story that's also a good superhero story, that's also a good, you know, revenge with a nemesis, like, they do a really good job with Killer Croc here and why he and Robin are actually opposite sides of the same coin. So that's pretty cool. And overall, I left this this miniseries really liking it. So yeah, only 3 issues, so a pretty quick little read. These are thicker than normal comic book issues. Like, normally it's just a staple, but they actually have the title on the side. So it's a pretty good quick read. Really like it. Heavy sense of character. Really, really great. And of course, really nice watercolors. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. If you guys want to see more, you can click there and see more. That will probably be my DC Comics playlist. I have a few other things in there as well. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.